secondary school, and we're talking about new or different techniques in teaching. And gentlemen, before we took the break for the news, we were talking about the acceptance of the teaching faculty there at Princess Margaret about this new technique. Continue with that train of thought.
Yes, obviously you have to think about remedial teaching. Classroom is dynamic, children learn differently, and we're in a new age where children use different technologies in order to learn. So therefore, everything you think about the iPad, you think about the phones, the tablet, they're visual. Children are becoming visual learners. And as a result of that, we as teachers, we have to adjust our teaching methodologies so that we can use the techniques that the children are familiar with to get them to reach the place where we want them to be.
But Seth, do you find this more important at a school like Princess Margaret, which, academically a lot of the students have not done as well?
Well, the thing about comics meet you where you are. So the students could find different means of reading comics that could reach them at the point they are at that point. So we could have them reading from Archie's to all the way up to more mature stuff like Sandman, and all of those are going to help them when it comes to reading in the classroom.
Actually, and that's what I wanted to move on to. How have you seen this new revamp resonating within the classroom and the actual school curricula as it pertains to literature and languages?
You see, if you are in English, doing English literature, there are graphic novels similar to Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare. Those now are being placed in graphic novels, so it would be easier for the students to recognize the characters that are speaking and the conversation where it ends and where it begins.
I like the question that Doug asked earlier about the type of children that we have at the Princess Margaret Secondary, and this program really speaks well to teaching these children to get them to the level where we want them to be come the same 5 years to do the C.A.T subject. Maybe at the primary level, if we had more of this, more visual teaching, more remedial teaching, something that children can identify with, we wouldn't have so many children failing English literature. And it is a fact that English literature at all the schools, one of the weaker subjects, because it is a subject where meaning is now put to what you read. Children have to internalize, conjure up images to see what the writer is putting on the printed page. With this program, you have it already there. There are characters, there's a plot, and everything is set just as contemporary literature, but more visual. Whereas in contemporary literature, some stories finish quickly. We have series of comic strips, and they can go on, and they can go on.
Ad infinitum. I am sold on this because it makes common sense to me. How difficult it is, getting it into mainstream education in Barbados?
Well, the Minister of Education has a mandate to reach every single child. Through art, through social studies, as you would imagine, comics have social storylines. You can use them in social studies. Think about Spider-Man. Well, can he be a spider and still a man? Get children to understand all the characteristics of a spider. Then you have a man. How could he combine the two? Therefore, children are able to make connections between the two and know, before they even know what a metaphor is, that in a metaphorical way, he is a spider. He does the same thing. Climbs walls, spins webs, and he's strong. So therefore, if you're the teacher of every single subject area, because it's a content area, they can get children to see things, then it'll be easier for them to understand what we're doing here when it comes to revamp. Their technical drawing, their buildings, if you look at those comic strips, the architecture is excellent, and it goes right through to the characters. So all the areas of teaching are covered within the comic strip.
Just to pick up on that, a researcher by the name of McLeod, he said that text is the art and words are the images. The same thing that somebody was saying, that we could use the different aspects of the comic and integrate them in different parts of the subject areas at school. And it could work well because it's visual. Most boys are visual learners, and girls could also get on board on this also. But in the way we were targeting the boys, because those boys are where the problem is right now in terms of the reading and the understanding, comprehending.
Now that you have a club with which the young men can sit down and discuss their comics, and you mentioned recently Asterix from Asterix and Obelix, how do these discussions spur off? What are some of the interesting comments and interpretations do you get from the children?
You see, with the illustration, so where the characters are drawn, that's the first thing that is drawn to the students. They will see, like for instance, Asterix, a short guy, but he's a star of the comic. Obelix, his friend, is a big, roundish guy. So from that alone, they can see that there are different types of people in the world, different heights, different sizes, and from that they could bring it into the real world from the fictional world.
You touched on an interesting point, because I'm wondering about how can we use the illustrations to paint a more positive picture, or to create a better understanding of social issues and the real environment, and rather than white faces and strange places and so on.
Yes, excellent question. When you think about Asterix, and Asterix is a small star. He's small, but he's really the big guy in the picture. So size doesn't matter. You get that. The dog is dogmatic, and he's dogmatic. He says whatever he feels like. The druid makes drugs, and his name is Getafix. You have the chief, he's about statistics, and he's big and round, but he's the chief. He's the big guy. So you can get children to understand that there are storylines, there are social issues, but as you mentioned, while there are some, I would say, dark female stars, like Storm, and you know what a Storm does, and you know she's dark, it really makes sense. But there are not a lot of black heroes within the comic strips. But the thing is, everyone relates to heroes. In cricket, we have heroes. There's the Brian Lara, of course, we have Sir Vivian, and the list goes on. So stars and heroes are things children can identify with, and they'll be positive role models.
Well, Seth Dulcie and Sam Giddens, gentlemen, I really thank you for explaining this new concept in teaching and learning, and we certainly hope it will take hold. It makes good sense to me, and I hope it makes good sense to those of you watching this morning, that at least you approach it with an open mind. We're going to take a break here.